Alubarna's palace was already cracking under cannon fire and rebellion. Then the sky went dark, not with crocodile sandstorms, but with an unnatural curtain of shadow swallowing the sun as a ragged laugh rolled over the battlefield. The moment his voice echoed through the capital, the entire war for Alabasta shifted. This was never meant to be his stage. Down in the streets, soldiers and rebels froze as the tremors in the sand changed. These were not the sharp, slicing quakes of a Logia sandstorm, but a heavy, suffocating pressure, an aura of gravity and malice pressing every chest to the ground. On the palace walls, Vivi looked up at a sky that refused to let the light back in and realized that Crocodile was no longer the worst thing in her kingdom. Because this was Blackbeard. In canon, this is the man who kills Whitebeard, steals the strongest paramecia in the world, breaks into Impel Down, tears open the prison, and walks out with an army of monsters. The man who hijacks Marineford, claims the Gura Gura no Mi, and helps destroy the old Yonko balance. But what if that same future Yonko, long before Marineford, long before his true awakening as a world power, stepped into the desert of Alabasta while everything was still fragile and unformed? At this point in the story, the world is early and deceptively small. Luffy is just a reckless rookie. The Straw Hats are barely holding together against one warlord. The Shichibukai system looks untouchable. Marineford is still a distant name, not a looming battlefield. Just how much could change if the man who later breaks that fortress appears now? Right in the middle of Vivi's desperate attempt to stop Crocodile from tearing her country apart. Alabasta is not a random kingdom on the map. It is a royal line trusted by the world government since the Void Century. A land secretly tied to Pluton, one of the ancient weapons that can destroy entire islands with a single blast. It is a pressure point the Gorose cannot afford to lose, and a secret crocodile wants to rip out from under them. The crazy part was that adding Blackbeard here does not just throw another pirate into the mix. It turns a contained rebellion into a global fault line. Blackbeard lives for chaos and opportunity. In a city where Crocodile is toppling a monarchy, a princess is racing against time, and a rookie pirate is punching up far beyond his weight, Teach sees a battlefield made for him. He can use Crocodile as bait, the Marines as shields, and Alabasta's secrets as his ticket into the true upper world of pirates and emperors. So what happens when a future Yonko steps into this desert? In this timeline, Blackbeard's arrival will rip apart Crocodile's carefully stacked plan, twist Luffy's growth, drag Ace's hunt straight into the capital, and force the Shichibukai system and the road to Marineford to evolve years too early. This is no longer just a civil war. This is the first true battlefield of the coming Yonko era. And the first sign of that new era is that unnatural darkness over Alubarna. Setting the board, timeline, power levels, and hidden agendas. That darkness over Alubarna doesn't appear in a vacuum. To understand just how much this war is about to mutate, the timeline has to be nailed down. The pieces placed, and every hidden agenda exposed. This scenario locks in right after Drum Island. The Straw Hats have Chopper, Luffy has just pushed through Wapol, and the crew is confident but still raw. No Gear 2nd, no Gear 4th. No Enies Lobby, Legends of the Sea aura. Zoro hasn't fought Kaku, Sanji hasn't clashed with Jabra, and their Haki awakening is still far away. On paper, this is a mid-tier pirate crew sailing into a desert kingdom. Not a force meant to clash with a future Yonko. At the same time, Blackbeard already exists in the shadows. He has his core crew, Burgess, Lafitte, Van Augur, Doc Q. They're moving quietly through the Grand Line, hunting opportunity, and in the background, the Yami Yami no Mi. He isn't a warlord candidate. He isn't a Yonko threat. To most of the world, he's nobody. But what if this nobody walks into Alabasta with the same ambition that will one day destroy Marineford? Crocodile, by contrast, is everything Blackbeard pretends not to be yet. A fully recognized Shichibukai, government backing. Baroque works spread like a parasite through the entire kingdom. Mr. Zero at the top, agents in the palace, agents in the rebel camp, agents in the streets. His public aura is that of a heroic protector, but underground, he is orchestrating a civil war, planning to seize the throne and obsessively chasing whispers of Pluton. The moment he heard ancient weapon under Alabasta, his entire ability, his entire plan, narrowed to one goal: control the country, then control the blueprint to world-breaking power. For the Marines and the world government, this is a ticking bomb. Alabasta is a loyal member kingdom. Its king attends reverie, and a rebellion here is not just local trouble. It's a threat to trade routes, to the balance between the four seas, and to the image of the celestial dragon's rule. Add rumors of an ancient weapon and a potentially rogue warlord, and the Gorosei and Sengoku are on edge. They cannot allow another God Valley. They cannot allow a second Ohara. Any strange tremors in this desert will be treated like the first sign of a global incident. Now drop Blackbeard into that pressure cooker. His entire rise is built on hijacking other people's wars, other people's chaos, other people's hard work. He waits, he watches, then he steals. Alabasta gives him everything at once. A warlord overconfident in his own scheme. A kingdom on the brink. A straw hat captain whose potential he can already sense. And the whisper of a weapon that can destroy the entire world. As Crocodile tightens his grip, Blackbeard steps onto the same board, looking for the one move that turns this desert rebellion into his first true empire. And the crazy part was that Luffy, Vivi, and even Ace are already walking straight toward him. The first footstep in the sand. Blackbeard's entry point. The desert was already a battlefield in slow motion. Two armies were marching toward a war they did not understand. But what if, right as the Straw Hats finally stepped into Alabasta, another monster quietly took his first step onto the same sand? The trigger point is simple. Whiskey Peak is behind them. Drum Island's snow is already melted off their clothes. And Vivi is still clinging to the fragile belief that this war can be stopped without drowning the kingdom in blood. Luffy is focused on reaching Rain Base. Crocodile is tightening Baroque Works' noose. This is the moment he arrives. A small, almost forgettable ship drifts into Nanohana's harbor. No grand flag, no marine escort. Just a rough vessel creaking against the dock while the wind carries one loud rolling laugh over the market noise. Teach steps onto the pier, coat swaying, teeth bared, talking about how this is the age of dreams and how the sea is overflowing with opportunity. Around him, his crew does not waste a second. Van Augur leans against a crate, his rifle resting casually while his eyes track movement and escape routes. Lafitte glides through the crowd like a ghost, already listening for rumors. Doc Q coughs on his tired horse, watching who looks sick, who looks desperate. Burgess stares at the wanted posters nailed to sun-bleached boards. Crocodile's heroic bounty. Baroque Works' scattered faces. And somewhere among them, the first sign of a pattern only Teach can truly read. Because Teach is not just a brawler. He is the kind of pirate who treats newsprint like a map. He sees that a warlord has turned this kingdom into his personal stage, that the world government is pretending not to notice, and that whispers of an ancient weapon are echoing through the alleys of Nanohana. Just how much value can one desert hold? To Teach, this is not a civil war. This is a ladder. And above all of this, there is an invisible clock already ticking. Ace is out there hunting him. In canon, Ace chases Blackbeard across islands and seas. But here, the moment he chooses Alabasta as his hunting ground, every move he makes risks drawing Ace straight into this sandstorm. Each tavern he visits, each rumor he stirs, each clash he provokes, could be the spark that brings Fire Fist into direct collision with Crocodile, Vivi, and Luffy, long before Marineford ever exists. The crazy part was, that Teach walks into all of this smiling, talking about fate and darkness, convinced the entire situation is bending toward his awakening as one of the strongest forces on the sea. Crocodile thinks he is the only spider at the center of this web, pulling every thread from Rainbase. But what happens when a second predator crawls into the same nest, one who does not care about Alabasta's survival at all, only about using this war to destroy the balance of power beyond the desert? As the first sandstorm rises over Nanohana, two unseen currents begin to cross. One belongs to the warlord who believes he already owns this kingdom. The other belongs to the man who will one day break Marineford. And the question hanging over the dunes is simple: whose darkness reaches the royal tombs first? Hijacking a kingdom. Blackbeard's first. Moves in the shadows. Those two currents don't collide right away. Blackbeard's darkness never charges straight at the throne. It seeps in, it waits. It laughs in the shadows while other men think they're running the war. Teach's first move in Alabasta isn't to challenge Crocodile or announce himself as the strongest threat in the desert. His power has always been patience. The moment he steps onto that burning sand, he does what he later does at Marineford and Impel Down. He lets someone else build the perfect battlefield, then walks in at the exact second the tremors are strongest and steals everything. So while Crocodile turns the kingdom into a powder keg, Teach scatters pieces across the board. Lafitte becomes his knife in the capital. The former sheriff slips into Alubarna like a passing ghost. Coat clean, shoes tapping lightly on stone streets filled with hungry citizens. Thanks to his new ability with hypnosis and misdirection, a single conversation with a palace guard is enough to rewrite a night's patrol. One whispered suggestion, and a corridor is left unguarded. One eerie smile, and a minor official suddenly remembers a meeting that never happened. He drifts between Alubarna and Rainbase, watching how people talk about Sir Crocodile, the desert hero who protects them from pirates. Lafitte listens in taverns where rebels curse the king, then in alleys where loyalists swear Cobra would never betray them. Names repeat: Vivi, Koza, Cobra. And above them all, Crocodile's aura as a savior who always arrives right after the disaster he secretly caused. Far from the palace walls, Van Augur takes the opposite role. High on a dune, rifle resting on bone-thin arms, he watches the entire civil war unfold like a slow-motion execution. He tracks Baroque Works agents moving through Yuba. He watches a tiny ship carrying a straw-hatted rookie cut across the coast. Just how much chaos can this country endure before it breaks? Augur counts each clash like bullets left in a chamber. On the ground, Doc Q moves like a dying omen, horse wheezing, body shaking. He wanders from town to town asking the same quiet questions. Is the king a tyrant? Has the rain really been stolen? Did Crocodile save you? Or arrive too late? The first sign of Alabasta's true condition isn't a battle, it's the way people answer. Some spit Cobra's name, some cling to it. All of them are one rumor away from snapping. Piece by piece, Teach harvests information. A warlord using his title as a shield. A secret organization called Baroque Works pulling rebel strings. A forbidden word buried in panicked whispers, Pluton. Not a weapon anyone has seen, but a legend powerful enough that a Shichibukai is willing to destroy an entire kingdom to reach it. And that's where the crazy part was that Teach's targets multiply instead of narrowing. He doesn't just see a kingdom to hijack, he sees Crocodile's warlord seat, a path straight into the government's trust. He sees Pluton's intel, a key to an awakening of power that could destroy entire fleets. And, thanks to Augur's scope, he sees a reckless rookie with a D in his name sailing straight toward the same battlefield Crocodile thinks he owns. But what if Blackbeard decides he doesn't have to choose just one? What if his first real empire begins not with a frontal assault, but with a stolen rebellion, a broken warlord, and a straw hat pushed into a war he never planned to fight. Because as the sandstorm thickens over Alubarna, Teach isn't asking whether he can win. He's asking how many thrones he can topple at once. And the moment he finally steps out of the shadows, the entire desert will realize too late that Crocodile was never the darkest thing buried under Alabasta. The question now is simple. When those three targets collide, Crocodile's title, Pluton's secret, and Luffy's rising legend, who does Blackbeard decide to betray first? A devil of a choice. When does Blackbeard get the Yami Yami no Mi? Blackbeard is about to make that question a lot more dangerous because everything hinges on one thing. Does he already command the darkness? To lock this what-if down, the timeline has to be clear. In canon, Teach spends decades hiding on Whitebeard's ship, waiting for a single devil fruit. He finally kills Thatch to steal the Yami Yami no Mi, disappears, and only later uses that terrifying ability to crush Ace, bargain for a warlord seat, and then walk onto the Marineford battlefield as the new monster of the age. During the actual Alabasta arc, he exists in the background as a fruitless pirate captain, already dangerous but not yet the man who will destroy the entire balance. But what if Alabasta becomes the turning point instead of Jaya? There are two realistic branches. In the first, Teach reaches Alabasta before he ever finds the fruit. That version of Blackbeard leans on raw physical power, brutal hockey, and a crew that can snipe from kilometers away, collapse morale with disease, and tear through armies in close combat. He is a predator, but still bound by normal limits. In the second branch, he has already killed Thatch off-screen, already swallowed the Yami Yami no Mi, and Alabasta is the first real test of this new ability. The difference between those two paths is enormous. A fruitless Teach must lurk in the shadows, push Baroque works from the edges, and wait for Crocodile or the Marines to slip. One mistake and he dies. With the Yami Yami, the entire desert becomes a trial ground. The moment he decides to move openly, Crocodile is no longer the undisputed apex predator of this war-torn kingdom. He is a stepping stone. This matters because the Yami Yami no Mi is not a subtle power. Its darkness drags other abilities in, cancels them, and spreads like a stain across the battlefield. Just how much does that warp an arc that was originally a political thriller built on secret identities, coded messages, and a hidden ancient weapon? Suddenly, every clash has the potential to look like a proto-Marineford, with shockwaves of fear running from the desert straight to Mariéjois. So this scenario will choose the more explosive route. Teach has just obtained the Yami Yami no Mi. He has killed Thatch, broken from Whitebeard, and is still exploring the limits of his darkness. Thanks to his new ability, he sees Alabasta not just as a random civil war, but as the perfect stage to prove that his awakening as a true contender has begun. The first sign for the outside world will be simple. A member kingdom, tied to the legend of Pluton, reports a man whose body turns into living gravity and swallows other powers whole. The crazy part was that the world government cannot ignore that. An early report of the Yami Yami no Mi in Alabasta forces a far more aggressive marine response than in canon, drags stronger players into the sandstorm, and puts Luffy, Crocodile, and Blackbeard on a collision course that looks less like a rebellion and more like the opening act of a world war. And once those eyes turn toward the desert, the next question is brutal. Who dares move first when every step might trigger the future strongest pirate's rise right under their feet? Darkness. Over Rainbase. Blackbeard meets. Crocodile's world Rainbase does not sleep. It glitters. It lies. Under the artificial rain and neon glow, the city of dreams hums like a casino chip about to flip. At the center sits Rain Dinners, Crocodile's palace of chance, spreading across the oasis like a golden spiderweb. Every street funnels hope, money, and secrets straight into that web. And on this night, as the Straw Hats push toward the city, just like in canon, another ship has already slipped into the harbor, carrying a far darker storm. Blackbeard walks into Rainbase looking like nothing. A tattered coat, a crooked grin, a crew that looks more like vagrants than future monsters. To the crowds, Crocodile is the name that matters. The hero warlord, the desert guardian, the man whose protection keeps the rain falling here while the rest of Alabasta cracks. Teach's presence barely registers. But what if that was the most dangerous part? Inside Rain. Dinners, the contrast is brutal. Crocodile's face flashes on giant Den projections. Gamblers roar his name with every jackpot, and Marines stationed in the city drink comfortably, certain that a warlord's aura keeps real trouble away. The first sign that something is off is not a fight, but a silence. The moment Teach sits at a cheap table, his crew fans out, and he just watches. He reads the room like a battlefield. He sees Baroque Works agents moving in pairs, never alone, their code names whispered under the spin of roulette wheels. He hears talk of a rebel army marching on the capital, of a princess gone rogue, of a nation splitting apart. Just how much chaos can one kingdom hold before it breaks? For Teach, that question is not a warning. It is an opportunity. Outside the casino, the web tightens. Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas patrol the alleys with lazy confidence, backed by unseen snipers and dugout tunnels. They are used to dealing with bounty hunters and small-time pirates who do not understand how deep Crocodile's network runs. Then, they run into Blackbeard's crew. It looks accidental. A bump in the street. A rude word. A dog's hoof clopping too close. But the crazy part was that the moment Mr. Four swings his bat, the entire tone of Rainbase shifts. Burgess catches a bomb like it weighs nothing. Van Auger's bullet snaps a hammer mid-swing. Doc Q's presence makes the ground itself feel sick. There are no flashy devil fruits yet, no grand awakening, just raw, ugly power testing the edges of Crocodile's territory. News travels fast in a criminal empire built on whispers. Within Rain Dinners, a soaked agent kneels before Crocodile's chair, sand drifting from his cloak, as if the desert itself is listening. A strange pirate crew, ridiculously strong, unafraid of Baroque works, unimpressed by a warlord's name. For the first time, Crocodile has to consider that someone else is playing a game inside his game. And as the rain drums harder on Rainbase's glass roof, the real question becomes brutal. When these two predators finally notice each other, which one decides to destroy the entire table first? Hero, villain, or something worse? Blackbeard's public mask. So what does a man like that do in a desert kingdom on the brink of war? He smiles. He steps into the chaos like it is his personal battlefield, and he picks a mask that will let him pull on every thread at once. The first sign that Teach understands Alabasta perfectly is the role he chooses to play. He does not arrive as a conqueror. He arrives as a heroic pirate, a rough outlaw who hates warlords abusing their status, who spits in the sand and growls that Crocodile is a coward hiding behind a government title. To the average citizen, that sounds insane at first. But what if this monster is actually on their side? Imagine Nanohana or Yuba. Tension thick in the air as rumors about Crocodile and the rebels collide. Blackbeard walks into a crowded square, lets his aura fill the space, and calls out Baroque Works by name. He talks about a secret criminal network, about a desert casino that smells like blood, about a warlord willing to destroy an entire kingdom just to tighten his grip. He offers one thing Crocodile never does: public outrage. That is where Vivi's desperation becomes a weapon he can use. She has watched her country crack under Crocodile's manufactured drought. She has seen the rebels preparing to march. The moment a powerful pirate denounces Crocodile in front of townsfolk and even rebel scouts, part of her has to pause. What if this is the leverage she needs? A brutal, uncontrollable ally, but an ally who can stand toe-to-toe with a Shichibukai. She would not trust him, but she cannot ignore him either, and Teach knows it. This hero act is not new for him. Later, he walks into the world government's halls as a useful dog, offers them ace, and earns a Shichibukai seat. Then he uses that position to break into Impel Down, recruit monsters, and stab the system in the back. The pattern is clear. He presents himself as the strongest solution to someone else's crisis, then turns that crisis into his personal awakening. On the Straw Hat's side, instincts start screaming. Luffy hears the words about freedom and hating warlords, but the aura is wrong. His gut clenches the same way it will on Jaya. Zoro's hand drifts to his swords. Sanji watches Teach's crew instead of his smile. Usopp and Chopper, though? They see a walking natural disaster who claims to be on their side and feel a flicker of relief. For once, the battlefield might tilt in their favor. But the crazy part was that every righteous speech is just cover fire for the real calculation. Beneath the laughter, Teach is measuring Crocodile's influence, the Marine's sensitivity to Alabasta, and the tremors running through this kingdom's politics. He is deciding whether Alabasta becomes his first empire or his ticket into the Shichibukai system years earlier. And once he decides which prize is bigger, the mask will crack. Because when Blackbeard stops pretending, the entire desert changes overnight. 3 spiders, 1 web, Luffy, Crocodile, and Blackbeard align. The moment the mask cracks, Alabasta stops being one man's playground and turns into a 3-way battlefield. Not just a rebellion, not just a Baroque Works conspiracy. This becomes the first hidden war between future monsters of the New World. At the center, each spider is spinning a different web. Luffy's goal is brutally simple: protect Vivi, stop the war, and punch Crocodile so hard his sand stops moving. He doesn't care about thrones or ancient weapons. He cares about friends crying in the rain. Crocodile's agenda is the opposite. He wants Cobra dethroned, Alabasta under his control, and Pluton's blueprint buried in his hands, turning him into the strongest warlord in the system. And then there is Blackbeard. His goal is leverage, a warlord seat, Pluton intel, or a high-profile victory over another Shichibukai. Anything that launches him up the food chain. But what if all 3 chase those goals in the same desert at the same time? Just how much pressure can one kingdom withstand before it breaks? The crazy part was that none of them actually understands the full shape of the other's ambitions. Crocodile, wrapped in government protection, still thinks he is the only true predator in this sandpit. He doesn't know Blackbeard's real nature, or that the nobody captain in the shadows is destined to wield the Yami Yami no Mi and destroy entire battlefields later. Luffy, charging forward on instinct, still doesn't grasp the weight of the Shichibukai system, the political aura behind that title, or how killing a warlord can shake the whole world. And Blackbeard, reading bounties and rumors, doesn't yet know how far Luffy will go for his crew, or that this idiot with the straw hat will one day punch a celestial dragon and declare war on the heavens. The first sign of real friction comes in a forgotten desert town. Inside a half-empty bar, sandstorm outside, tension inside, Luffy and Teach end up at neighboring tables just like in Jaya. The same greasy plates, the same cheap booze, the same talk about dreams being the only thing pirates own. But this time, the civil war is already roaring outside the walls. When Teach laughs about the age of dreams, Luffy feels the weight of those words. 2 future Yonko on opposite sides of a rickety counter, both drawn to the same kingdom, both hunting different prey. From that moment, Alabasta is no longer a local crisis the Marines can quietly clean up. It becomes the prototype Marineford, years too early. A warlord using a kingdom as bait, a rookie captain swinging at the heavens without understanding the cost, and a rising monster testing how far chaos can be pushed, before the world government blinks. And the next clash in Rainbase or the burning outskirts won't stay Luffy versus Crocodile. It will twist into a three-way collision of ideology, ambition, and raw power, where every punch thrown at one spider shakes the other two webs. Because the instant those three finally meet under the same storm, the desert stops being a backdrop and turns into the first true proving ground for future emperors. Yadurste, darkness revealed. Yami Yami no Mi's first public display. And the desert gets its first taste of true darkness, not in a royal tomb or an ancient weapon chamber, but on a dusty trade road where no one is supposed to matter. A rebel supply caravan is racing toward Nanohana, loaded with water and medicine that could decide who controls the battlefield by sunrise. The first sign that something is wrong isn't a gunshot. It's the sand itself going quiet as Baroque Works agents fan out from the dunes. Mr. Four's explosions and Miss Merry Christmas is tunneling, cutting off every escape route in seconds. Civilians scream, rebels draw rusted rifles, and the ambush tightens. It looks like another quiet massacre Crocodile will erase with one report. But what if this time the desert answers back? A laugh rolls over the dunes, low and ugly. Blackbeard steps out from behind the caravan, his crew scattered through the rocks, watching. He could walk away. He could let Crocodile's pawns destroy the entire convoy and then loot the corpses. Instead, the moment he raises his hand, the sky itself seems to flinch. Darkness doesn't just appear, it pours. A black tide erupts from his body, swallowing sunlight, staining the air, crawling over wagons and camels like living tar. The temperature drops, color drains. For a heartbeat, sound dies. No wind, no shouting, no explosions. Just a crushing pressure as gravity spikes and the sand buckles like a living thing trying to escape. Buildings in the distant outpost groan as their foundations drag forward. Loose stones, rifles, even Baroque Works agents feel their bodies yank toward the center of that aura, toward Teach, as if the entire desert suddenly tilts in his direction. Devil Fruit users in the ambush feel it first. Mr. Five's explosive boogers sputter and die in his nose. Miss Valentine's weight tricks refuse to trigger. Their abilities swallowed by a darkness that feels like it wants to destroy more than just matter. Panic hits instantly. Agents claw backward. Boots carving trenches in the sand that slide toward Blackbeard anyway. One of them, half buried, shrieks into a den mushi. "It's eating our powers! The darkness is eating everything!" The crazy part was that even the rebels he just saved can barely look at him. To them, he's a savior wrapped in something worse than Crocodile's sandstorms. Near Rainbase, a marine patrol led by Smoker and Tashigi spots the distant column of unnatural night twisting up from the horizon. Smoker's Moku Moku. Nomi body bristles as the tremors in the air reach him. For the first time, he feels genuine instinctive danger from another ability. Just how much of the Grand Line's balance shatters if a power like this spreads through the rumor mill of a world already terrified of Pluton and ancient weapons? Thanks to his new ability, Teach doesn't just crush an ambush. He announces himself. Reports race ahead of him. A pirate whose darkness drags the entire environment inward, who can nullify devil fruits and weaponize gravity itself. Back in Rainbase, Crocodile listens to the first frantic transmission, cigar paused. A power that can smother Logias in their own element, in a desert he thought he owned. This isn't a simple rival. This is an unknown variable that can challenge a warlord on his own battlefield. And the worst part for Crocodile? That darkness is moving closer to Rain Dinners, and it's not coming alone. Crocodile's counterplay. A warlord versus the unknown Crocodile doesn't panic. He never does. But the first sign that this isn't just another rookie crew is the way his cigar stops halfway to his lips and stays there. reports of sandstorms collapsing inward, gunmen dragged screaming into pits of living darkness, a Logia user being yanked out of intangibility and slammed into the ground. That goes against everything he knows about the pecking order of devil fruits. In the desert, he is supposed to be untouchable. So what is this ability that can swallow the battlefield itself? On paper, Crocodile should dismiss Teach the same way he dismisses almost every pirate that wanders into Alabasta. Background noise in his private war. But what if this darkness can smother sand itself, cancel his awakening before it even manifests, and destroy the entire illusion of invincibility he's built? Just how much of his plan can survive a power that turns the environment against its owner? So he does what a warlord does best. He tests. Orders ripple down Baroque works like tremors before an earthquake. Mr. 1 is sent first. Steel blades and ruthless efficiency. Miss Doublefinger follows, a living spear meant to pierce through any defense. If Blackbeard's crew crushes them, Crocodile learns something crucial without ever stepping outside Rain dinners. If they struggle, then this Teach is just another overhyped monster. The moment he considers sending Mr. 2 as well, the calculation changes. Bon Clay isn't just muscle. He's a tool for infiltration, for impersonation. Imagine him mimicking Blackbeard or one of his commanders, slipping into their circle, testing their reactions. Crocodile wants numbers, range, durability, how that darkness behaves under pressure. Thanks to his new ability, Teach might look like the strongest man in the desert today. But Crocodile refuses to believe anyone walks in and takes his throne without bleeding for it. Yet under that arrogance, there is something else. Memory. Crocodile has seen the new world. He knows the aura of true predators. Whitebeard, Kaido, those whose very presence bends a battlefield. When the first detailed description of Teach's darkness reaches him, it triggers that buried instinct. This isn't just a nuisance. This feels like the early footsteps of a future emperor, and that's where the political animal inside him wakes up. Why fight a war on two fronts when he can redirect it? If Alabasta spirals out of control, Crocodile can frame Blackbeard as the real villain, the chaos agent who corrupted the rebellion and threatened a world government member state. He keeps his warlord seat. He fails to save a kingdom that was already doomed. And the Marines focus on erasing Teach instead of questioning Baroque works. The crazy part was that this forces him to accelerate everything. Rebellion timetables move up. Pluton intel is shifted deeper underground, away from any darkness that could literally drag the Poneglyph chamber into nothingness. Crocodile starts preparing for a battlefield where Straw Hat Luffy isn't the only wild card. He has to consider a clash against a darkness user who wants more than destruction. Someone who might be eyeing Alabasta, the warlord system, and even the entire balance of the seas. And as those plans tighten, one question hangs over Rainbase. Who will reach Blackbeard first? Crocodile, Luffy, or Ace? Desert Crossfire, Straw Hats caught between two monsters, and that's exactly where the desert turns into a crossfire. The moment Blackbeard steps out of Rainbase's shadows, the entire mission for the Straw Hats fractures. It's no longer a straight line of beat Crocodile, save Alabasta. It becomes a warped battlefield where a second monster is rewriting the rules in real time. Because Crocodile still controls Baroque works, the royal cover, and the war in the streets. But what if, right in the middle of that, a future Yonko starts pulling gravity around himself, drawing rebels, bounty hunters, and desperate soldiers toward this new, darker star? Now every move Luffy makes risks triggering two predators at once. Attack Crocodile too openly, and Teach watches, learns, and waits to steal the prize. Confront Blackbeard too early, and Crocodile uses the chaos to destroy the royal family and seize the entire kingdom. Vivi stands at the center of that storm. The first sign that this isn't the same Alabasta arc is when Blackbeard approaches her not as an enemy, but as a savior. He offers a shortcut: expose Crocodile publicly, crush him with overwhelming power, end the war in a single night. Fewer casualties, faster peace. All she has to do is let a pirate with no allegiance reshape her homeland. Just how much does she trust Luffy's slower, riskier path when every minute means more bodies in the sand? This is where her faith is truly tested. Luffy promises to punch through the war and save everyone, but Blackbeard promises something colder: results. No ideals, no speeches, just raw power. Vivi hears screams from Yuba, sees the smoke over Nanohana, and feels the weight of every dead soldier. Choosing Luffy means believing that the Straw Hats can stand between two of the strongest rising forces on the seas. Choosing Teach means gambling Alabasta's soul for a faster end to the bloodshed. Luffy's instincts sharpen instantly, thanks to his new ability to read people through pure gut feeling. He senses that Blackbeard's dream talk hides something rotten, an awakening of darkness that doesn't match the goofy grin. The crazy part was that this is Luffy's first real brush with the kind of evil that will one day break Marineford. He doesn't have Gear Second, he doesn't have advanced Haki, but he feels that aura of hunger that wants the entire world. Inside the crew, pressure spikes. Zoro wants to cut down the bigger threat before it grows, arguing that leaving Blackbeard alone is like walking past a ticking bomb. Sanji fires back that Crocodile is the immediate executioner of this kingdom, and splitting focus gets Vivi killed. Usopp and Chopper shake at the thought of two near-invincible monsters in the same war, their imaginations filled with sandstorms, swallowing ships, and darkness swallowing entire cities. As they argue, every faction starts converging. The rebel army marches for Alubarna. The Royal Guard races to intercept. Baroque Works agents reposition to guard Crocodile's throne. Blackbeard's crew drifts like vultures toward the capital, and the Straw Hats, caught in the middle, sail straight toward a city that has become a powder keg, just waiting for one spark from either monster to blow the desert sky apart. Ace enters the storm. The Fire Fist arrives too early, and just when that powder keg seems ready to blow from one spark, a second one appears on the horizon. The first sign is not sand or steel or darkness, it's fire, a thin orange line carving across the desert night, refusing to bow to the storm. News of a man of darkness tearing at a world government kingdom hits Whitebeard's fleet like a cannon. A rogue with a gravity-like ability, hunting chaos, targeting a country tied to ancient weapons. Ace doesn't hesitate. The moment he hears Desert Kingdom and Black Hole, the hunt for Teach stops being a wandering chase and snaps into a straight line toward Alabasta. In the canon timeline, Ace stalks Blackbeard from island to island until Banero becomes their private battlefield. But what if that pursuit slams straight into a civil war instead? Just how much more dangerous does Alabasta become when the strongest rookie of Whitebeard's 2nd Division decides this is where he draws the line? Ace's entrance is not subtle. He cuts through the same sandstorms that swallowed caravans and rebel scouts, leaving molten glass footprints that glow in the night. Civilians peek from shattered windows and half-buried doorways, whispering about a second, heroic pirate whose flames push back the darkness in the sky. To a kingdom that only knows Crocodile's staged rescues and Baroque Works' terror, this new aura feels like an awakening of hope and fear at the same time. Two monsters, two possible saviors. No one can tell which is which. When Ace finally crosses paths with the Straw Hats, the reunion is nothing like the carefree meeting in Nanohana. It happens with smoke on the horizon and gunfire echoing from rebel lines. Luffy charges forward, grinning, but the air is heavier. Vivi watches these brothers collide in the middle of her ruined homeland and realizes that the scale of her war just left human limits behind. This isn't just about a warlord anymore. It's about a traitor to Whitebeard, a future Yonko candidate, and the Fire Fist sent to destroy him. The crazy part was that Ace already knows the truth about Blackbeard. Thatch is dead, Teach is the reason. Every second Blackbeard breathes in Alabasta is another second he can twist this chaos into his own rise. So Ace doesn't come as a wandering ally. He comes as an executioner. Strategically, that single choice shatters Blackbeard's timeline. He can no longer lurk at the edges of the battlefield and wait for Crocodile to fall before making his move. Ace's flames force him out of the shadows. If he hides, Ace burns the country until there is nowhere left to run. If he steps forward, he risks a full clash before his plans are ready. And that is where the entire desert shifts. Because the inevitable Ace versus Blackbeard showdown, the one that in canon tears Banero Island apart, is now about to erupt in the middle of Alabasta itself, surrounded by civilians, rebels, royal guards, Baroque works agents, and the Straw Hats, all trapped inside a battlefield that might not survive the first exchange. The question is no longer who wins. It's who, if anyone, is left standing when the fire meets the void in the heart of a dying kingdom. First clash of darkness and flame, Ace versus Blackbeard in Alabasta. The desert becomes the arena. The moment Ace and Blackbeard finally face each other, it isn't on a lonely island. It's on the stretch of sand between rebel lines and royal forces, a fault line of an entire kingdom at war. Above them, the sky literally splits. One half a blazing mirage of orange heat, the other a suffocating dome of crawling darkness. Ace ignites first. Columns of fire roar upward, turning the dunes into rivers of molten glass. Every breath he takes radiates a burning aura that pushes the heat back toward Blackbeard's side of the battlefield and away from the civilians clustered near Alubarna's walls. He isn't just attacking, he's shaping the battlefield, forcing his own flames to bend so they don't destroy the people he came to protect. But what if the strongest shield of fire in the desert meets the hungriest darkness in the world? That's when Teach answers. The first sign is not sound, but silence. Sand stops hissing. Wind stops howling. The Yami Yami no Mi blooms behind him like a black sun, and the dunes collapse inward as if gravity itself just awakened. Ace's fireballs get dragged, twisted, and swallowed into a spiraling void, vanishing into a darkness that seems to drink light, heat, and hope at the same time. Teach screams as the flames tear through his body from the inside, skin blistering, coat burning, but he only laughs harder. Thanks to his new ability, pain is the cost of power, and he's more than willing to pay. He reaches out, yanks Ace from his Logia intangibility, and slams him into the sand, forcing a close-quarters war between fire and void right in front of both armies. The clash reshapes Alabasta's heart. Every impact sends tremors through the desert, kicking up sandstorms that swallow rebel scouts and royal guards alike. Glass dunes form where Ace's attacks overheat the ground, while Blackbeard's darkness carves bottomless craters that swallow entire squads. From a distance, it looks like two gods fighting over the fate of a dying kingdom, and word spreads through both armies faster than any command. A Whitebeard commander and a man of living darkness are destroying the battlefield itself. In one branch of this timeline, Ace falls. Blackbeard's gravity drags him down, his flames snuffed out and his body broken, captured before the eyes of Alabasta. Now Teach holds a bargaining chip years earlier. A direct line to the world government and a shortcut into the Shichibukai system without ever touching Jaya. In the other, Ace barely tears himself free, using a final, desperate inferno to blast open an escape route. He escapes, but he's wounded, his reputation scarred, and the entire world has just seen a darkness ability that can drag even fire into the abyss. Just how much more dangerous does Teach look now? Either way, the aftermath is the same. Reports of a member kingdom turned into a testing ground for a Whitebeard commander, and an unknown darkness user land on Sengoku's desk. The crazy part was that this happens long before Eni's Lobby or Marineford. The Gorosei cannot ignore it. A preemptive crackdown, a harsher presence in the desert, and the first quiet moves toward a future war are already beginning, even as the sand is still cooling into glass. And while Alabasta tries to breathe again, other predators in the New World start to notice the name Blackbeard. The Marines. Wake up! Smoker, Tashigi, and a government on edge. But while the New World is only starting to whisper Blackbeard's name, Alabasta's Marines are the first to feel the tremors. Smoker is on the move when it hits him. A sandstorm on the horizon, a report in his hand, and one phrase that should not exist in this desert. Darkness that swallowed the sky. He already knew Crocodile stank of something worse than hero worship and staged rescues. But what if the warlord's little kingdom was hiding a war between a Whitebeard commander and a man who controls darkness itself? The first sign is the tone of the Den Den Mushi call. Panicked, clipped, nothing like a routine status report. A patrol describes glassified dunes stretching for kilometers, charred craters still smoking, and civilians babbling about a sun that vanished into a black hole. Smoker clenches his jita. This is not some pirate riffraff. This is commander-level power clashing in a country tied to Pluton. As he rides his smoke across the sky, the visualization becomes real. Entire ridges turn to warped glass, as if the desert had been flash-frozen and then melted again. Deep pits where Ace's flames bored through the sand. Patches of ground stained pitch black where Teach's darkness dragged everything down and crushed it. Just how much did HQ underestimate this place? Tashigi walks those same battle scars on foot. Her boots crunch over razor-sharp glass instead of sand. She sees a child's toy half fused into a dune, a caravan wagon folded into a twisted sculpture by heat and pressure. These are not the marks of a protector, like Crocodile. These are the marks of monsters the Shichibukai system was supposed to contain. The moment she hears civilians praise Crocodile while shaking in fear of an unseen darkness user, something breaks. If a warlord can run a secret army, ignite a civil war, and still get called savior, then what is this system really protecting? And if someone like Blackbeard can roam free until he crashes into Ace in the middle of a member nation, how long before the entire balance collapses? Back at Marine HQ, Sengoku's desk becomes a battlefield of conflicting intel. Crocodile active. Straw Hat Luffy sighted. Fire Fist Ace engaged. An unknown darkness ability capable of swallowing light itself. All inside a kingdom historically linked to an ancient weapon. Thanks to his new ability to read patterns of chaos, Sengoku sees the outline of a future war here. He weighs options fast. An admiral deployment to crush everything at once. A Buster Call-level task force to erase evidence and secure Pluton intel. Or a quieter reinforcement that keeps the Gorosei calm while still tightening the noose. The crazy part was that every choice risks turning Alabasta into the next God Valley. Crocodile feels that noose tightening. Reports of Marine warships shifting course. Cypherpol agents going to ground. His window is shrinking by the hour. Does he accelerate the coup and seize the throne before an admiral lands? Hunt down Blackbeard and erase the anomaly? Or abandon the kingdom, escape with whatever scraps of Pluton knowledge he has, and survive to scheme another day? Blackbeard reads the same storm as opportunity. In his eyes, the incoming Marine hammer is a ladder. If he can feed the world government a head like Crocodile's, deliver Ace in chains, or leak even a fragment of Pluton information, he can bargain for a Shichibukai seat years ahead of schedule. Why wait for Jaya when the perfect stage is already burning? As Marine flags multiply on the horizon and Denden Mushi lines light up from Mariejois to the desert, Alabasta stops being just a civil war. It becomes a test site for Blackbeard's ambition, for the Shichibukai system, for how far the world government will go to keep the ancient weapons under control. And right in the middle of that tightening triangle, One rubber pirate crew is still racing toward Rainbase, unaware that the next move could drag an admiral, a Yonko in the making, and a future execution into the same battlefield. Kingdom of Pawns, Blackbeard's Triple Edge Gambit. That test site doesn't stay empty for long, because if there is a battlefield full of trembling plans, collapsing systems, and hidden weapons, there is one pirate who will always smell opportunity first: Blackbeard. And in Alabasta, he suddenly has 3 fronts to play like a chess master who never moves his own king until the very end. On one side stands Crocodile, a sanctioned warlord, already burrowed into the kingdom's veins, hunting Pluton and using Baroque works as his private army. On another, the Marines and world government, desperate to stop civil war before it spreads and terrified that an ancient weapon could destroy their entire balance of power. And cutting straight through both is Luffy, a wild card with the will of D, an awakening of chaos in human form, who keeps shattering inevitable plans just by charging forward. So how does Teach turn this desert into his first real stepping stone? The first sign is which piece he decides to sacrifice. Scenario 1 is Warlord Theft. Blackbeard targets Crocodile directly, not with honor, but with exposure. He lets Baroque works run just long enough to gather proof of treason, failed assassinations, and Pluton research. Then, the moment Crocodile overextends in Rainbase or Alabasta, Teach strikes publicly. He drags Crocodile out in chains, broadcasts his crimes to the Marines, and presents himself as the solution who cleaned up a rogue Shichibukai. In one move, he steals Crocodile's title, his government backing, and his reputation as a stabilizing force. But what if he goes colder? Scenario 2 is Pluton Broker. Here, Crocodile and Luffy are just noisy cover. Teach's real target is the intel hidden in royal tombs, poneglyph roots, and Cobra's records. Thanks to his new ability to read people and pressure points, he squeezes information out of captured Baroque agents, outlaws, even panicked nobles. He doesn't need the weapon itself. He just needs enough truth to terrify the Gorosei. Then he walks to the negotiation table as an independent pirate, offering silence and protection in exchange for resources, safe routes, and secret marine cooperation. And then there is the most familiar path, Scenario 3, Chaos Investor. He lets Luffy, Vivi, and even Ace do the heavy lifting. The civil war rages, Crocodile and Luffy clash beneath the palace, and Ace hunts rumors of Teach in the sands. Blackbeard watches. He waits. Then he swoops in at the final collapse to claim credit for Crocodile's defeat, seize prisoners, loot Baroque's network, or even occupy key ports, mirroring the way he later harvests Marineford and Impel Down after everyone else is broken. The crazy part was that no matter which road he takes, his power doesn't come from raw strength alone. It comes from weaponizing other people's dreams and wars. Vivi's tragedy, Cobra's burden, Crocodile's ambition, Luffy's freedom, Ace's justice. Each becomes fuel for a future Yonko's rise. But just how much can he twist those dreams before one of them explodes in his face? Alabasta Apocalypse. Rewriting the final battle. The answer hits in Alabasta. The moment all 3 storms collide, the capital stops being a city and turns into a layered battlefield. On the outer ring, rebel and royal armies crash in the streets, steel on steel, gunpowder smoke mixing with desert dust, as Cobra's banners and Koza's forces grind each other down. In the middle ring, the Straw Hats slam into Baroque works at every choke point, rooftops, plazas, narrow alleys, each duel a desperate attempt to keep the war from spilling straight into the palace. But the inner ring, that belongs to Blackbeard. Teach's crew moves like a dark tide between both sides, ignoring flags and loyalties. Van Augur perches on broken minarets, sniping officers from either army. Burgess tears through buildings just to reach stronger prey. Lafitte glides over the chaos, whispering lies into the ears of whoever still listens. This isn't their war, it's their hunting ground. Inside the palace, Crocodile and Luffy still clash, but the entire aura of that fight changes. Before, it was a clean duel of sand versus rubber. Now, every tremor in the walls might not be Crocodile's sandstorm. It might be Blackbeard drawing closer. Crocodile is forced to divide his attention, sand senses constantly reaching outward, checking for a third presence. Luffy's punches still smash through sandstone pillars, but even he feels it. Something even more predatory is circling. Then comes the pattern interrupt. Right as Crocodile moves to finish Luffy with a desert spear, the ceiling implodes. Darkness pours in like liquid night, swallowing stone, banners, even the light from the chandeliers. Teach steps through the collapsing debris, laughing, offering Luffy a hand and a promise. They can destroy this warlord together. But what if that offer is just another weapon? Thanks to his new ability, the darkness doesn't just choke the room, it starts dragging Crocodile's sand in, nullifying the one thing that made him feel untouchable. The first sign that this isn't a rescue is the way Blackbeard's darkness clings to Crocodile's body, pulling him off balance, ripping grains of sand away like flesh. He isn't choosing a side. He's measuring which opponent breaks faster. Luffy sees it. Crocodile feels it. Outside, civilians and soldiers look up at the palace and witness something no legend prepared them for. Sand blades tear the sky, rubber fists shatter towers, and a column of darkness rises, threatening to swallow the entire heart of Alabasta. There is no single hero, no single villain, just monsters whose powers are awakening in ways this kingdom was never meant to withstand. Vivi's dream of a clean resolution dies in that moment. Even if Luffy beats Crocodile, even if Blackbeard is driven back, the capital is being carved apart from the inside. Just how much of Alabasta survives when 3 high-level forces unleash everything at point-blank range? This stops being a rescue and turns into an apocalypse in miniature. And the crazy part was that the war in Alabasta might only be the prologue to something even worse. Who claims the throne? Possible endgames for Alabasta. That prologue leads straight into the real nightmare. Who actually walks away owning Alabasta when the tremors stop? Because once Blackbeard steps onto this battlefield, there is no clean victory left. Only different flavors of disaster. Ending A is the illusion of triumph. Luffy still drags himself back up, still drives a fist through Crocodile's sand and arrogance. But the moment Ace dives in to cover him, the entire flow of the war twists. Ace pins Crocodile down with burning fists. Luffy smashes the underground chamber, and for 1 second, it looks like the classic heroic ending. But what if Blackbeard uses that opening, sinking the ruins with darkness and quietly stealing the Pluton poneglyph rubbings while everyone thinks he's been buried? In this path, Teach plays the reluctant ally. He helps Ace intercept Crocodile, blocks a killing blow on Luffy, and then, thanks to his new ability, chains Ace in gravity and vanishes into the sandstorm with the Fire Fist as a hostage. The crazy part was that the kingdom is technically saved. The rebellion stops, the rain returns, yet Vivi's victory is poisoned because the strongest monster to touch Alabasta doesn't die here. He leaves holding either the blueprint to an ancient weapon or the key to Whitebeard's heart. Ending B is Blackbeard's coup. Here, Crocodile underestimates Teach one time. He tries to dehydrate the darkness, only to have his body dragged in and torn apart in a single brutal counterattack. Blackbeard walks out of the palace soaked in blood and sand, carrying Crocodile's severed hook as proof. and presents himself to the Marines as the savior who exposed a traitorous warlord and protected a vital kingdom. Just how much does the world government love a man who solves their problem and asks for a Shichibukai seed as payment? In this version, Alabasta survives, but under a new aura. Blackbeard gains official protection, parks his crew in Nanohana and Rain Base, and turns the entire desert into his first semi-legitimate stronghold. Vivi keeps her crown, yet every decision she makes now has a shadow behind it. Is she a queen or a hostage ruling under a pirate's smile? Ending C is mutual ruin. Luffy, Crocodile, Ace, and Blackbeard all go all out in Alabasta. Quakes from underground canals, sandstorms, fire pillars, and collapsing darkness craters destroy the capital's core. The Poneglyph chamber is shattered. Pluton intel scatters across the black market, and the world government declares Alabasta unstable. Occupation follows. Cypher Paul and Marine flags flood the streets under the excuse of reconstruction. Here, Vivi's dream of peaceful rule dies outright. To protect her people from both pirates and the allies who seized her country, she has to awaken into something closer to a revolutionary, quietly aligning with Dragon's network or even the future Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Across all three endings, the theme is the same. Inserting Blackbeard here corrupts the very idea of a neat heroic resolution. This battlefield stops being a simple good versus evil story and becomes the first true taste of the morally gray world the Straw Hats were never meant to face until Enies Lobby and Marineford. And if their innocence is shattered in the desert, the next question is brutal. How does that change the crew that sails into the sky and then into Water 7? Ace's fate shattered. Does Marineford still happen? That crew doesn't just sail into Water 7 different. The entire world's schedule of tragedy starts shifting the moment Ace crosses paths with Blackbeard in the desert. In canon, their fated duel on Bonero Island is the spark that lights Impel Down and Marineford. But what if that spark ignites in Alabasta instead, right under the world government's nose? Just how much pressure does that put on every power in the world when a Yonko commander and a future Yonko collide years ahead of time? If Ace is captured here, the chain reaction is brutal. Blackbeard delivers him not from some nameless island, but from the ruins of a member kingdom. The Marines are already monitoring because of Pluton. The first sign that something is different is the speed of the government's response. A high-profile prisoner, a loyal son of Whitebeard, handed over by a man whose ability to manipulate darkness and gravity terrifies even Cypher Paul. Sengoku doesn't wait. The public execution clock starts ticking early. That means Marineford arrives in a world that isn't ready. Luffy is still pre-Gear 2, no Enies Lobby, no Impel Down Breakout, no Jinbe, no Crocodile, no massive allied aura behind him. Whitebeard is a little younger, a little healthier, his tremors more stable, but his forces are smaller and less mobilized. The battlefield becomes a warped version of the war we know. Fewer pirates, fewer escapees, but a stronger old man shaking the entire bay. Does that make the Marines safer, or does it make this Marineford even more likely to be destroyed by his rage? On the other path, Ace escapes, but loses. The moment he staggers back onto Moby Dick, burned, crushed, and shaken, everything changes. He tells Whitebeard about a darkness user who nearly erased him and tore a kingdom apart as collateral. The crew, that once brushed off Teach as a traitor, now hears about an ability that can swallow other powers and nullify the strongest devil fruits on the battlefield. Thanks to his new ability, Blackbeard is no longer a footnote. He becomes a future calamity. Whitebeard starts watching the shadows. Shanks listens more carefully. Kaido and Big Mom feel a new tremor in the balance. The Yonko era begins to tilt long before Marineford ever happens. For Luffy, Seeing Ace defeated or dragged away in chains in Alabasta is a psychological Marineford years ahead of schedule. His brother's aura of invincibility is destroyed right in front of him. That kind of trauma doesn't wait for Eni's lobby to push him into overdrive. He sails into Skypiea, Water 7, and CP9 already obsessed with power, already aware that the world government and monsters like Teach can take everything. Does he still fool around in Davy-back fight? Does he charge Eni's lobby with the same reckless faith, or with a colder, more calculated rage? And underneath all of this sits the real question. Is Ace versus Blackbeard a fixed point, destined to drag the world into war no matter where it happens? Or does exposing Teach this early actually avert Marineford by forcing the Yonko and the government to crush him before he can awaken his grand plan? Because if Blackbeard's rise is interrupted in the desert, the next ripple hits an even deeper secret. The ancient weapon sleeping beneath Alabasta's sands. A darker age of warlords. Shichibukai system under siege. And this is where the world government's nightmare really begins. Because once Blackbeard steps into Alabasta and collides with Crocodile's scheme, the shockwaves don't stop at the desert. They slam straight into Mariejois and tear open the illusion that the Shichibukai are loyal attack dogs. Crocodile's downfall becomes the first sign that the system is rotting from within. Whether he dies in a three-way war between Luffy, Ace, and Teach, gets exposed on live transponder snails as the architect of a civil war, or barely escapes with his body broken, one thing is clear. A world government-backed warlord just tried to destroy a member kingdom from the inside. On paper, Alabasta is supposed to be a showcase of justice. Instead, it becomes a case file on how dangerous too much autonomy really is. In response, the Gorosei need a replacement, and this is where Blackbeard moves. But what if he walks into that empty seat not as an unknown upstart from Jaya, but as the shadowy figure who helped end the Alabasta War? The moment he presents Crocodile's defeat as proof of his reliability, the Shichibukai roster mutates. A future Yonko is now inside the room, listening to classified briefings, learning how Buster calls are authorized, watching which islands the Marines quietly avoid. Thanks to his new ability to play both savior and monster, Teach turns the Warlord title into his personal springboard. He gains safe harbors, government escorts, and direct access to the strongest prison on the sea long before Marineford. The crazy part was that the very structure designed to control pirates is the one feeding this darkness user intel, resources, and targets. The other warlords feel the tremors immediately. Doflamingo, who lives off information and hidden trades, would see a darkness user with government backing as both a toy and a threat. Mihawk, who values balance on the battlefield above politics, now has to factor in a man whose power literally destroys stability. Kuma, the quiet revolutionary pawn, suddenly has a new variable inside the same system he is infiltrating. Just how much does Dragon tolerate a wild card like Teach, sitting at the same table as his own operative? Meanwhile, the public perception of the three great powers starts to erode. Citizens in Alabasta do not forget that a warlord started their war, that another warlord finished it, and that the Marines arrived too late to prevent any of it. Rumors spread. Are these government dogs protectors, or are they the ones tearing kingdoms apart? Long term, the Celestial Dragons react the only way they know how, with more weapons. If a single warlord can hijack an entire nation, the answer becomes accelerated pacifista deployment, rushed SSG experimentation, harsher Buster calls, and even tighter control over Marine admirals. The world Luffy sails into after Alabasta turns colder, more mechanized, and far more brutal. And all of that paranoia focuses on one buried word: Pluton. Because once a darkness user touches a kingdom tied to an ancient weapon, the next government move is not diplomacy, it is eradication. Straw Hats in a Harsher World. Luffy's growth. Rewritten. That's where the real twist of this timeline hits. The Straw Hats leave Alabasta alive, but they don't leave untouched. They've watched a kingdom nearly destroyed, not just by a warlord playing God with the desert, but by a man whose darkness could erase powers and swallow entire city blocks. How do you sail away from that and stay the same? The first sign is in their eyes. The laughter on the merry is still there, but it comes after longer silences. They've seen civilians crushed between Baroque works agents and Blackbeard's crew, Marines firing into streets they were supposed to protect, and a darkness ability that turned the battlefield into a bottomless pit. That kind of war leaves tremors that don't fade. Usopp jokes less when the topic is the world government. Chopper looks at wounded people and remembers how quickly a liberation can twist into slaughter. For Luffy, this becomes the moment he understands that punching the main villain once is not enough. In canon, Crocodile is the wall he breaks through. Here, Blackbeard is the wall that moves. Teach can lose the clash, lose the castle, even lose teeth, and still win by escaping with intel on Pluton, on Vivi, on the government's panic. But what if Luffy's first taste of that kind of enemy comes this early? He starts to feel that raw strength alone cannot destroy every scheme. So his leadership shifts. He still charges forward, but now he watches where the real strings are being pulled. He trusts his instinct about people even more fiercely. If someone gives him the same rotten aura as Blackbeard, there is no second chance. When he tells the crew to run, to split, or to protect one target above all, they listen because they've seen what happens when darkness users get time to prepare. Nami, meanwhile, has stared at charts of Alabasta's ruined climate and watched Crocodile and Teach twist drought, trade routes, and sandstorms into weapons. Just how much damage can a single ability do when it's paired with economic manipulation and government cover? She starts reading weather as a threat profile, not just a navigation tool. A sudden storm near a government island is no longer bad luck. It's a potential trap. Robin is hit even harder. She knows what it means when a man like Teach shows interest in a kingdom whispered to hide Pluton. Thanks to his new ability to nullify powers, the idea of him controlling an ancient weapon is not just terrifying, it's apocalyptic. Every poneglyph she reads now carries a new weight. If she uncovers the wrong secret in the wrong place, Blackbeard or the government will move to erase that island the way they tried to erase Alabasta. And this changes every future arc. Water 7 is no longer just about a shipwright city. It's a test of whether the Straw Hats can stay ahead of a system that failed to stop Blackbeard once. Enies Lobby becomes more than a rescue. It's payback against the same machine that let a darkness user roam free on a Pluton-linked kingdom. Skypia's Golden Bell and ancient ruins. They aren't just romantic adventure anymore. They're warnings that the sky, the sea, and the past are all part of one long battlefield. The crazy part was that this harsher world doesn't break Luffy. It forges him. Alabasta becomes his first true brush with the caliber of enemy that rules the New World. So when Blackbeard finally stands before him as a Yonko, it won't feel like a shocking new threat. It will feel like a rematch years in the making, and the Straw Hats have been training for that second round since the desert. From desert to Marineford, mapping the new timeline. From here, the timeline doesn't just bend, it buckles. The desert clash with Blackbeard becomes the first sign that the New World's monsters are no longer waiting politely for Luffy to reach them. Once Teach stakes his claim in Alabasta, the Yonko map starts shifting years ahead of schedule. Kaido, who watches the balance of power like a predator circling a wounded herd, would notice a darkness user tearing through a member kingdom under world government protection. Big Mom's information network would whisper about a man whose ability can swallow entire cities into nothing. And Shanks, the one who already sensed Blackbeard's danger, can't stay on the sidelines. But what if his confrontation with Teach happens not in the shadows before Marineford, but openly, as the world reels from the Alabasta incident? That single change forces Whitebeard to move differently. The moment reports reach him that a former subordinate with a terrifying new power has clashed with his future allies' little brothers in a desert kingdom. His calculus on Ace changes. He is younger, less worn down, and the tremors of this threat hit him earlier. Instead of a passive search for Teach, the Whitebeard pirates start treating Blackbeard like a rising Yonko candidate who needs to be crushed before his awakening is complete. This ripples straight into Impel Down. With a Shichibukai seat earned off Alabasta and a dark reputation already circulating, Teach walks into the prison either as the government's risky attack dog or as their most distrusted weapon. If the Gorosei buy the act, his infiltration is far easier. Doors open, security looks the other way, and his crew roams levels that Luffy had to fight through. But if they already fear his aura of chaos, Impel Down turns into a trap, not a tool, and the war that follows erupts without Blackbeard's army of monsters. Marineford itself becomes Marineford 2.0. Imagine an earlier Ace capture, triggered when Ace chases Teach, not after Thatch's death, but after the Alabasta catastrophe. Whitebeard is stronger, less sick, and the Marines are more paranoid after watching one kingdom nearly destroyed from within. The battlefield changes. The admirals prepare not just for the strongest man in the world, but for the man who hunted the darkness user they couldn't control. Just how much harder do they clamp down? Does Sengoku push for buster calls on Yonko territories, turning the entire era into open war? Meanwhile, the Revolutionary Army is watching. Dragon already had eyes on Alabasta because of the ancient weapon rumors. Thanks to his new ability, Blackbeard turning a member kingdom into a personal playground becomes the perfect case study in why the current system must fall. The crazy part was that this doesn't just increase their interest in Luffy's journey, it accelerates it. A D with a straw hat opposing the same darkness that threatens the world government's facade becomes a symbol the revolutionaries cannot ignore. By inserting Blackbeard into Alabasta, the story doesn't just gain an extra villain. It tears open the second half of One Piece and rearranges every major arc. Enies Lobby becomes a test run for Marineford. Marineford becomes a premature final war. And the New World turns into a battlefield built around one question. Who reaches their true peak first? The boy forged in the desert, or the man of darkness who started his empire there? The answer depends on one more crucial shift in this timeline, and that comes next. Your turn in the dark. Choosing the most dangerous timeline. That crucial shift is where the timeline splits into the darkest branches. Because once Blackbeard walks into Alabasta with the Yami Yami no Mi, this desert stops being just Luffy's proving ground and becomes the first real battlefield of the Age of Darkness. So what actually changed? First, Blackbeard's early arrival means the Yami Yami awakening into the story years ahead of schedule. The moment he drags that darkness across Rainbase, Crocodile's sand advantage disappears, Baroque Works agents get swallowed by gravity, and the entire city turns into a testing ground for a power designed to destroy other abilities. Then Ace arrives, drawn by the tremors of Teach's chaos, and the war for a single kingdom suddenly involves a future Yonko, a warlord, a supernova, and a Whitebeard commander. The Marines cannot ignore that. Crocodile's exposed coup, Blackbeard's rampage, and Ace's presence force a heightened response. Cypher Paul and an Admiral-level force descend on Alabasta, not just to protect a member nation, but to contain a devil fruit that threatens the balance of the Shichibukai and Yonko systems before they even properly form. Thanks to his new ability, Teach has the perfect excuse to offer his services as a warlord early, or to play the victim and let the world government weaponize his darkness. That leads to the core questions. Does Alabasta survive as a kingdom under Vivi and Cobra, scarred but free? Or does it become Blackbeard's first empire, a desert fortress where he experiments on devil fruit users and ancient weapon lore beneath the palace? Does Ace escape this war with a different scar and a different path? Or is his tragedy inevitable in any world where Blackbeard exists, just pulled forward into this sandstorm instead of Marineford? From there, the main branches are brutal. In one endgame, Blackbeard becomes an early warlord, replacing Crocodile the moment he falls, turning the Shichibukai into a deeper trap that hides an emperor in the making. In another, Alabasta ends under occupation, its royal family erased, while Teach uses rebel and royal armies alike as disposable experiments. Or, Luffy wins the visible war, beats Crocodile, saves the kingdom, while Blackbeard wins the quiet war in the background, stealing Ace, stealing influence, and turning this victory into the prologue to Marineford. So here is the question to you. Which alliance feels the most realistic in this desert? Blackbeard siding with Crocodile to hijack Baroque works from within. Blackbeard helping the Marines to earn trust and a title, or Blackbeard trusting no one and using all three factions as stepping stones. Just how much does each path twist Marineford, the Yonko map, and the final war around his darkness instead of Whitebeard's legacy? Drop your own Alabasta Blackbeard scenarios in the comments. Who lives, who falls, and who walks out as the strongest? If this deep dive what if hit you, like the video, subscribe for more, and get ready for the next episode, where the first real Luffy versus Blackbeard battle doesn't happen in the New World, but right here under the desert sun.